Good afternoon. Today is the 4th of October 2021. Welcome to the lunchtime news here on TV1. For the News First team, the voice of the people, I'm Sanita Senanayaka. Before we take a look at the stories for this afternoon in detail, let's take a look at your headlines.
Pandora Papers reveal names of Nirupama Rajapaksa and Thirukumar Nadeshan. President returns from the US. Indian Foreign Secretary meets Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. Why did the Indian Foreign Secretary visit Trincomalee?
ඒ අයට සම්පූර්ණ අයිතියක් තියෙනවා ඒ තෙල් ටැංකි බලන්න යන්න ඒක කාගෙන්වත් අහන්න අවසර ගැනීමේ අවශ්‍යතාවයක් නැහැ.
Trade unions and opposition groups protest against sale of national assets.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has returned to the country this morning. He was attending the 76th session of the United Nations General Assembly in the United States.
The president took wing on the 18th of last month to attend the United Nations General Assembly. During his visit, the president also held bilateral discussions with several heads of state who were attending the sessions. Foreign Minister Professor G.L. Peiris, Chief Advisor to the President Lalit Veeratunga and Foreign Secretary Admiral Professor Jayanath Columbage also accompanied the president on the visit.
Taking a look at a story that has made headlines across the globe today, the Pandora Papers that exposes tax secrecy has revealed the name of former Minister Nirupama Rajapaksa. It has been published by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists.
The Pandora Papers reveals how people set up companies overseas to hold investments and assets.
We have emails, passport copies, bank statements that show how presidents, kings, princesses, billionaires and criminals hide and move money.
The data belongs to 14 companies that assist with this process. Setting up foreign entities to hold investments and assets isn't illegal. This is unless it had been used to do something against the laws. The Pandora Papers reveal how Jordan's King Abdullah II had amassed properties worth more than $100 million from the US to the UK. It also shows how UK's former Prime Minister Tony Blair and his wife didn't have to pay £312,000 in stamp duty when buying a house. The leak also links Russian President Vladimir Putin to secret assets in Monaco. 6 Indian citizens have also been named in the papers. This includes former national cricketer Sachin Tendulkar. His lawyer says the assets have been declared lawfully. Prime Minister Imran Khan has promised to investigate Pakistani citizens named in the Pandora Papers. More than 700 Pakistanis have been named in the papers. This including some ministers and key members of Prime Minister Imran Khan's inner circle.
Papers වල ලංකාවේ දේශපාලකයන්ගේ නම් තියෙනවා කියලා වාර්තා වෙනවා ඊයේ රාත්‍රියේ ඉඳලා.
මේ යම්කිසි දේශපාලකයෙකුට නම් තියෙනවා නම් ඒ
The Bribery and Corruption Commission must investigate the assets of a politician. If their name is mentioned, I have heard that there is a retired politician from a business family. There are 7 in Asia. 1 is from Sri Lanka. There is no need to mention their name. The Bribery and Corruption Commission must investigate that.
මේ අය සම්බන්ධයෙන් අයිතු ලෙස දේපල ලිපීම සිදු කර ඇද්දයි වහාම අල්ලස්සෝ දූෂණ කොමිසම සොයා බැලීමක් කළ යුතුයි.
ඒක පෞද්ගලික කෙනෙක් ඒකට රජයක් හැටියට කොහොමද මැදිහත් වෙන්නේ කියන එක ගැන
That is a personal matter. I cannot immediately announce how the government can intervene to it. If anyone has earned money illegally in Sri Lanka, there is a law in the country. We will take the relevant action in line with that. It doesn't matter who is involved in it. As the government, we will take actions against the wrongdoers.
වරදකරු කවුද අපි රජයක් හැටියට ඒ වරදකරුවෙක් තියෙනවා නම් ඒකට තීන්දුව ගන්නවා.
India's Foreign Secretary Harsh Vardhan Shringla has met with Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. He is on a 4-day visit to the country.
Sri Lanka's foreign ministry has said that the Indian Foreign Secretary will meet President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa. Harsh Vardhan Shringla visited 3 districts yesterday, including the Trincomalee oil tank farm. The Indian High Commission in Sri Lanka said in a tweet the Indian Foreign Secretary was updated on development at the Palali airport. This was during his visit to Jaffna.
Port trade unions have distributed leaflets opposite the Colombo port. They are opposing the sale of ports, electricity and oil tank farms in Sri Lanka to foreign entities.
Joint trade unions of petroleum, ports and electricity distributed the pamphlets opposite the headquarters of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation in Dematogoda.
The leaders of our nation are attempting to sign various agreements, throwing the CPC and CPSTL in jeopardy. Amendments have been proposed to Act number 28 of 1961. The China Bay oil tank farm has been put at risk by creating an entity named the Petroleum Resources Development Authority. We have entered a large-scale struggle to stop these new acts being introduced and deals from being struck, along with all the employees here.
Port trade unions also engaged in distributing pamphlets opposite the Colombo port opposing the sale of national assets.
Campaigns were launched by the Joint Union of Petroleum, Electricity and Ports to oppose the sale of national assets. National assets of all three of these sectors are about to be sold. As trade unions of all these institutions, we urge the government to immediately halt the process to sell off national assets. Failing to do so, all these trade unions will launch a massive struggle.
Representatives of the CEB also distributed leaflets today to create awareness on the sale of national assets.
40% of the Yugadanavi power plant has been sold to America's New Fortress Corporation. The corporation has been given the sole authority of the supply of LNG, including the supply of LNG, laying of pipelines and storage facilities.
A protest opposing the sale of oil, electricity and port assets was organized by the Samagi Janabala Vege today. The protest was held opposite the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. Many parliamentarians from the Samagi Janabala Vege participated in the protest.
The
government has made the country bankrupt. They are selling valuable resources to foreign countries and entities to obtain commissions. The government has become an auctioning company.
The hilarious part is that 2 tenders have already been submitted for LNG projects. We understand that 10 companies have been forced to refrain from submitting tenders. That is how they are trying to hand over the deal for the LNG power plant to a US company through the back door.
Those in the government are calling them investments. Giving national assets to foreign countries is not an investment. It becomes an investment if those countries bring their resources here.
We saw the Indian Foreign Secretary visiting the country. He isn't talking about diplomatic ties. He is visiting the country's resources. He is inspecting those areas as if they belong to him to begin plundering them.
What will happen to the people of our country? We wish to urge the government to protect the country's resources for the future generation.
The Indian Foreign Secretary's inspection of the Trincomalee oil tank farm has raised concerns within many segments of society. Minister of Energy Udaya Gammampila was questioned by journalists on that front today.
ත්‍රිකුණාමලේ තිබෙන තෙල් ටැංකි සංකීර්ණයේ ටැංකි
All 100 oil tanks in Trincomalee have already been handed over to India based on Indo-Lanka agreements signed in 1987 and 2003. We are only focused on reacquiring these oil tanks from India. A certain opposition parliamentarian showed a photograph of a helicopter claiming it was Udaya Gammampila and the Indian Foreign Secretary who were travelling to Trincomalee. I wish to responsibly state that I have not travelled in a helicopter with anyone since I was appointed as the minister. The Secretary has not even requested a discussion with me. According to information information from India, my subject will not be a matter which will be discussed. I also heard Venerable Omal Pesobithero saying to the media that this was an attempt to hand over 85 oil tanks to India. We do not possess 85 oil tanks to give away to India. I want to respectfully remind Venerable Omal Pesobithero that the leaders of the Samaki Jana Balawegya, back then the UNP, have already handed it over to India. Do not lie to gain political mileage, Venerable Thero. The Buddhist saying of abstaining from lies is applicable to both civilians and the clergy. Since successive governments have permitted India to use these oil tanks, they possess the right to visit those tanks without requiring permission.
සම්පූර්ණ අයිතියක් තියෙනවා ඒ තෙල් ටැංකි බලන්න යන්න ඒක කාගෙන්වත් අහන්න අවසර ගැනීමේ අවශ්‍යතාවයක් නැහැ.
Meanwhile, the minister also expressed his views regarding the Petroleum Resources Development Act, which is to be amended soon.
මේ සතියේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ විවාදයට ගැනෙන
The new Petroleum Resources Act, which will be debated in Parliament this week, will seek to establish regulations pertaining to the extraction of natural gas and oil, which are deposited deep within our land. The Ceylon Petroleum Corporation has not even been mentioned once in this act.
එක වචනයක් මෙම පනතේ කොතනවත් සඳහන් වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
UNP leader Ranil Wickremesinghe and Chief Opposition Whip Lakshman Kiriyalla questioned the Speaker on privileges of parliamentarian Rishad Badiuddin, who is currently in remand custody.
Rishad
Badiuddin has been remanded on detention orders. If there is evidence to prove he has done something wrong, take this forward as a court case. Release him if there is no evidence. This is a problem involving the parliament. If a parliamentarian is under custody, there must be charges. It will take about a month or two to examine them. I am requesting you to write to the Attorney General and ask him whether there is sufficient evidence to press charges against him. An MP arrested under the Prevention of Terrorism Act is now being detained on suspicion that he might interfere into the investigations. We might be arrested next for helping a person in their case. I have repeatedly told you that you must protect the rights of parliamentarians. You don't have to serve the rulers or the government. MP Rishad is a party leader. He has been in parliament for about 20 years. There is no charge against him. Under UK parliamentary traditions, the Speaker can make inquiries when an MP has been arrested. That's what the former Prime Minister also said.
In more news from the ongoing parliamentary session, State Minister Susil Premajayantha says the government will resolve the salary issues of teachers in the next budget. He made these remarks in Parliament today.
The concern we have here is, why aren't they appointing you as the education minister? You are the best person who understands the education sector. Therefore, I am requesting you to outline how this issue will be resolved. Will you issue a circular to resolve the salary anomalies of teachers, or will you establish teaching as a closed service?
If everyone agrees, we can issue a cabinet paper to establish teaching as a closed service. I also agree with that. But a circular should be issued only after you make a final decision. The circular should include the exact percentages on salary structures. We expect to resolve this issue through the next year's budget. The ministerial subcommittee has given a fair decision on this. The cabinet has also approved it. Now we expect to allocate funds from next year's budget to implement that decision.
In some COVID-19 related news, Sri Lanka received 340,000 doses of Pfizer COVID-19 vaccines today. The vaccines imported from the Netherlands had reached the country this morning. It is the first batch in 4 million doses ordered by the State Pharmaceutical Corporation. The vaccines are stored at the National Blood Centre in Narahempita.
මේ සංචරණ සීමා ඉවත් කිරීම හරහා නැවත වැඩිවීමක් දක්නට ලැබුණොත්
If cases increase because of relaxing travel restrictions, we won't be able to handle it. We have seen what happens when the restrictions are relaxed. Although the results can't be seen immediately, we can see it in 2 weeks after relaxing restrictions. It is important to stop the virus from spreading during this period. We will review the situation in 2 weeks and decide the future action.
මේ පිළිබඳව ඉදිරියේ ගත යුතු ක්‍රියාමාර්ග පිළිබඳව දැනුම් දෙන්න ඉඩ තියෙනවා.
Suspicion has arisen on whether a Grama Niladhari officer was run over by a motorcyclist.
Crime Watch.
The Graman officer was found on a road with cut injuries in Udangava. The Ambampula police are conducting investigations. They are investigating whether the person was attacked or run over by a vehicle. Police say they have identified the plate number of the vehicle.
Crime Watch.
A suspect has been arrested with white sandalwood in Hakmana. It has been cut illegally at the Singharaja Reserve.
The Southern Province Special Operations Unit had carried out the raid to arrest the suspect. This was based on a tip-off received by the Special Task Force. 300 kilos of sandalwood and 341 kilos of an endemic plant, agarwood, were seized from the suspect. Police say the suspect was a 58-year-old. He had been attempting to export the wood by cutting them illegally at Singharaja.
And that brings us to an end of this edition of Lunchtime News here on TV1. For the News First team, the voice of the people, I've been Sanita Senanayake. Take care and stay safe.